1 out of every 5 students report being bullied. 13% were made fun of, called names, or insulted. They were pushed, shoved, tripped, or spit on. 1 in 5 tweens have been cyberbullied. It's a problem, and it has to stop. Welcome to Bully This, a hero's journey. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Our passion is to show kids that there is life after bullying. You'll hear from former bullies and bullying victims, and you'll hear how they made their journey from troubled youth to successful adults. Welcome to Bully This, a hero's journey. Now your hosts, Tyler Copenhaver Heath and Clifford Starks.
Hey, and welcome to episode 4, Bully This, A Hero's Journey. Can you believe it's episode 4 already?
I can. Time has flown, and it's really awesome.
I'm even going to remember to introduce myself this time. I'm Tyler.
I'm Clifford.
Okay, Cliff. So I'm going to switch things up, and change is good, right?
Yes,
sometimes.
absolutely.
Maybe not always. So what I want to do today before we start is a lot of this is about awareness, right? So I'm actually going to give you some information, and I want you to guess who this person is. It's somebody that's experienced bullying, and I'm positive you all know who it is. But if we see that these people we already know, they've had this same path, maybe it brings more awareness, right?
True.
So Here we go. He was the youngest and smallest guy in his school. He also used to get soda cans thrown at him. At one point, his schoolmates even tossed him down the stairs and actually hurt him pretty bad. He said of bullying, if you're getting bullied, you still have to go to school. You have to get up in the morning and you have to go, even though he hated it so much. His first wife said, I don't know that people understand how tough he had it growing up. He was really a lonely kid. Now, here's the thing. This man today, he could get further away from any bullies than anybody in the world. But I don't think he has that problem anymore. Who do you think it is?
I'm going to guess Michael Jordan.
No, it's Elon Musk.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay, because the only reason Michael Jordan came to mind was because you were talking about Michael Jordan just a minute ago. So I'm like, I don't remember that.
Well, I guess Michael could jump and kind of go out of this world like Space Jam, but no, Elon Musk. And so as I found when I'm researching a lot of this stuff is there's, a lot of people you wouldn't expect, but we'll get another one next time. And you got another shot. So I want to tell you another story.
You literally gave it to me with all of the, and I wasn't looking at them.
I didn't even decide on that last part until I was in the car. I'm like, I got to give him a little bit better clue.
Yeah, that was the clue I needed, and I completely passed it.
Okay, I got another one. So it was sophomore year when the 5'10" basketball player tried out for the high school basketball team. He was passed over, too small, and no talent. But this would not beat him. Quite the opposite. Who do you suppose it was?
Elon Musk.
Michael
Jordan, round 2.
Now you got Michael Jordan. So today I want to talk, and our sub-theme is going to be missed potential. One of my biggest fears in life is missed potential, and not only for myself, but for other people. Cliff, have you seen the thing on Netflix, Last Dance, Michael Jordan?
I have not. I still need to watch that movie.
So it's so cool. It's about the season where the Bulls were really dominant, and a bunch of interviews with all the guys. Really interesting documentary. I'm not a huge basketball nut, but I got so much out of this, and it sent my mind like just reeling, thinking about it. And I started thinking about Michael Jordan, and I started thinking, has anybody been as good as anything ever as Michael Jordan is at basketball? And I started thinking like maybe Mozart in music, or maybe, Alexander the Great as a leader. And I couldn't think of really anybody. Michael Jordan was just so dominant. But furthermore, let's say Michael Jordan had decided to quit. Decided to stop practicing when they told him he was too small, Or let's say it was 400 years ago and there was no basketball. What would Michael Jordan have done? But then let's talk about another guy, Michael Phelps. Best swimmer in the world, right? And like not talking crap about swimming, but a lot of people look at basketball as a cooler sport. He's a tall guy, maybe he would have decided to go into basketball and been a mediocre basketball player. I don't know, but he's the greatest swimmer on earth.
Yeah.
So I want you to think about that. How many people out there right now are being told that they're too small, they're too big, they're too something, and giving up?
Yeah.
How many people are listening and they're just missing this Michael Phelps, this Michael Jordan thing?
Yeah.
Can you imagine if you're just missing your thing that you're Michael Jordan at?
Yeah.
That's pretty scary, isn't it?
It'd be crazy.
So I wanted to talk today. We've got a great guest. His name's Chad Lopez. Little bit of background on Chaz. He studied health science at Bellevue University, where he went to school full-time as well as played baseball full-time. After his undergrad, he went and tried out for professional baseball. His dedication and hard work paid off because he got a contract. Really cool. And by the way, I had to bring out my inner Barbara Walters because Chaz is such a humble guy. He was impossible to get information out of. He's I kind of played pro ball and I played baseball here and I'm doing good in school. But so unfortunately after pro ball, he would hurt his back and this would derail the pro ball career. But that didn't really stop Chaz because he went back to Bellevue. And he was then pursuing a master, or is now pursuing a master's in communication, and he's also coaching. So he's still involved with baseball. He's hoping to help other students overcome similar issues with the sport he loves. So once again, I tracked down Chaz's mom and got some info out of her. And she says that Chaz won't say it, but he's always loved school and sports despite everything. So even as a kid, and what happened, he still loved sports. He still loved going to school. He still loved studying. She said he wants to work in something that allows him to spread love, kindness, and hope despite what he endured. He will also graduate with the highest scores in his program, and he's coaching at the same time. What you may not be able to tell at the moment was Chad was considered way too small for baseball and was often told so. He had very few people that believed in him, but one person did. This person told him he needed to work harder than anyone else since he didn't have the size to back it up. But I guess it's best if Chaz tells it. Welcome, Chaz.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate you guys having me.
No, glad to have you here. So, not to be too redundant, but we always start with the hero's journey. And so we're just going to walk you through the hero's journey through this whole thing. So first, we're going to talk about, kind of what you experienced in school, how it built you, and then what you're doing now. And so can you tell me some stories about what it was like growing up and maybe some of the things that you experienced?
Yeah, most of it started, I'd say, elementary school, 4th, 5th grade. And it got really bad in middle school, just constantly just having kids, whether or not it was physical stuff, just constantly pushing me down or whatever it was, just because I was smaller than everybody. But the bad thing was just the constant, just the mental, constantly calling me different stuff like that, or calling me bad words just on a daily basis. And it just builds up over and over again. And as a small 10, 11-year-old, you go to school every single day and you got 4 or 5 kids telling you this stuff every day. And it starts to wear on you. You really lose your confidence. You lose who you truly are. And that's where I noticed the biggest change for me was I've always been very outgoing person. And because of dealing with that bullying for years, just people just hounded on me. And it continued in college to an extent. But just people hounded me. You walk around and you don't feel normal. You don't feel good about yourself. You don't feel confident, whether it's just talking to your friends or playing baseball. It's very difficult to be who you truly are and be that individual. And so just like I said, just years and years of that, that mental bully, you want to call it, just with constant bombarding.
And you were not only small kid, kind of like Elon. That's kind of why I chose Elon for the intro. you had red hair too, right? And so being
yeah.
different with red hair was kind of something that people tried to use against you and bully you for, right?
Oh yeah, no. I want to say I don't know exactly when that South Park episode came out, but I want to say that was like 6th or 7th grade when they made the episode about gingers having no soul. And obviously, like it's South Park, and South Park's they do stuff like that all the time. I mean, I love watching South Park, but you tell 12, 13-year-olds like that, and then you go to school with the kid who has red hair. And I mean, my hair used to be way more red than it is now. Like,
So it gave them ammo.
yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely. It gave them ammo. Like, yeah, I can't tell you how many times I was told that I had no soul, or like people like acted like I was some crazy person because I had red hair, and like because they could call me a ginger, and like that was the only thing. I mean, there's absolutely nothing else, but I had red hair, so they could be like, "Oh, Chaz has no soul," and it's like, and I'm sitting here like 11 years old. I'm like, I don't even know what a soul really is at this point. Like, I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. But
I think I have
tell
one.
me, but you tell me this on a daily basis, and eventually I'm like, oh, like maybe I don't have a soul. Like maybe I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, just daily basis type of deal, just over and over again. You start to believe that stuff.
Yeah, tell me about being involved in sports and what that was like, you know, because a lot of our people that have been bullied, you know, they tend to shut down altogether, but you stayed in sports, you know, you kind of you almost got siloed within the system because you were in sports still, but you're kind of all alone, right? Is that kind of correct?
I mean, not all alone. I mean, I had like a couple friends who I play ball with. But honestly, like the big thing for me was baseball outside of school. And so I was blessed. My parents started having me play like select travel baseball when I was 10 years old. And honestly, if I didn't have that, I probably would have stopped playing baseball because school baseball was where it was the worst because you got two coaches, sometimes only one coach. And so you got one adult out there with 25, 30 12-year-olds, and they're the 5, 6 of those bullies who are on the baseball team. They're going to take advantage of one adult out there. And so at especially middle school. I mean, I only played middle school baseball for 1 year, and then it got taken out. But that was brutal. I mean, I remember one day, like I broke down to my pops, like because he was one of our assistant coaches on my middle school team, and I broke down to him. I was like, dude, like, pops, I can't take this anymore, man. Like it's just every day, and like I just broke down in tears, and just that was the first time I ever really told him about it. But I had gotten to the point where I was starting to shut down, where it was just I can't do this anymore. Like I don't know if I can go to school and go to practice and have these kids just constantly hounding me. And I'm grateful that I had that outside source where I could still play the sport that I loved on a daily basis and get away from like where I was just getting hounded on.
Do you find it was even so our kids, we kind of watch out for your kids, but then your dad's so busy with 25 other kids. Was it even hard for him to see, you know, as the coach there, you know, that this was going on?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, my pops was always like the type of guy, he like told me to like deal with it on my own and stand up for myself. And he always like emphasized doing stuff like that. And so if he didn't see it, like, I mean, it's not that he didn't believe me. It was more like, I don't know what you're talking about because I wasn't there. So like, I don't know what to do for you. And so at that circumstance, it was almost like, it wasn't even useful to have my dad there. Like, and honestly, to an extent, sometimes the kids would push me and do stuff like that because he was there. Because they're like, oh, Chaz's dad's here. Like, let's screw with him even more. Like when he's not looking, like, oh, Mr. Lopez has turned around. Like, let's push Chaz on the ground now. Like, all right, let's do this now because Mr. Lopez isn't looking and he'll have no idea. And then so it definitely was. It was he probably had no idea even a quarter of the extent to how bad it was.
And that's what's.
I mean, I never shared that stuff with him.
Yeah, and that's what's so like we talked about last time on our last episode about, you know, parents and teachers and the involvement. But that's the thing. It's like with 25 kids, even, you know, like it's difficult to see this, you know, even when your son's on the field. And so that's why it becomes, you know, way more complicated is a bad word, but it's like, you know, like it's tough for somebody to see with 25 people while you're the parent there on the ground, let alone, you know, teachers and things like that. And so the problem is not an easy problem to solve, is why we've been kind of, you know, walking down this path of finding out more and more.
So I was curious, when your parents did give you another baseball team to play on, was that something that you asked them? Was that something that they were going to do anyway? How did that come about?
That actually started, like I said, I started playing select ball when I was 10. My dad, I wanted to do like some private lessons, and he introduced me to this guy at a random facility, and I was playing Little League at the time. And then the guy who was my hitting instructor just offered me a spot on the summer team that he coached for. And I started playing summer ball from 10 until 18, all the way through high school. That was.
Sorry, go
say
ahead.
it again.
I was
Oh, no,
going
I
to say, was
go
that
ahead.
kind of give you a little bit more attention and help and mentoring?
I mean, at 10, 11, yeah. But that I would say the biggest coach was when I was 16, was my junior year in high school. And this was when it was really bad in high school. Was my junior year was brutal. I was probably, I mean, I don't know, 5'6", 5'7", probably weighed 135, 140 pounds. Like that was the year I got taller than my mom for the first time when I was 5'6", and that was a big moment. But
Yeah.
and so I was a junior in high school. I was 17 years old, and I was still a little pipsqueak, and I had a coach outside who he told me on a daily basis, like, dude, you're way smaller than everybody else. Like, you're competing against guys who they're the same age as you, but they're 6'1", 6'2". And like they're not full grown men, but they look like full grown men already. And you still look like you're 13. And so you got to work harder. And he like made that relationship with me, and he was always there for me, pushing me and telling me that like I have the skills, and you just have to believe that once you grow, which I did, like, and I put on some weight, got in the weight room and all that stuff. And he goes, once you grow, like these kids aren't going to have anything to say, because like they may be here and like you're here because you're smaller than them, but you work 3 times as hard as them. And so eventually you're going to go like this, and then they're going to go here, and then you're going to keep going here. And like the ceiling never stops when you work that hard, where these kids who are blessed with being tall when they're 13 years old, like they don't really know, they don't have to work super hard. I don't know what it is. And so like that was big for me, having that coach when I was 16. And he actually coached me until I was 20.
That's what I found so cool about your story, is because you basically used that thing that wasn't working that well for you in baseball, you know, kind of like Michael Jordan when he was 5'10", you know, and you went out and you're like, I have to work that much harder because I don't have this body that's built for baseball yet. So I've got to do double what these guys do. And then the world blessed you because, right, you grew a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, no, when I went to college, I want to say I was like 5'10", probably 155 pounds. And by the end of my freshman year, I was 6'1", probably about 175. So I grew about 3 inches and put on about 25, 30 pounds that first year in college. And that was actually like, that was the year where I made the biggest jump, like as far as how hard I threw, was that it literally was instantly. Like I grew, and then I gained like 6 miles per hour. And obviously, like I had my coaches at my first school, they helped me tremendously and stuff like that too. But like that's
awesome.
It was true. Like
I love the process of the mentorship and you know, being willing to put in the reps. I call it putting in your reps. And when someone can see something on the other end, it makes putting in those reps so much easier. You know, that's what I went through on my journey, and I'm sure you may have went through that on your journey as well, to say, hey, if you do this, you're going to get this reward. So you had a reward at the end, and you ended up getting it, which is super awesome.
Well, that's a big thing about what this podcast is about too, is showing possibilities, right? You had a coach that was like literally telling you, hey, work hard. You've got to work really hard. You got to work harder than them because you don't have this natural body that's built for baseball. And then he somehow knew, he's like, the second this kid, gets his little growth spurt, all that work ethic is just going to combine with that new baseball body and he's going to be dominant. And he was right, And so if we don't have people that are telling us the road as mentors before the road's coming, how are we going to see it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to backtrack just a little bit, Chaz, because I know in your younger career, there was some adults around you that were kind of polar opposite of that mentor coach that actually built you. Can you tell me a little bit about the other adult influences that weren't as helpful?
I mean, they just overlooked me. Just like you said, like for whatever reason, like these adults, like they want to personify it onto you. And so they look at you, and everybody else who's 17 years old, 15, 16 years old is normal height, 5'9", 5'10" for most guys. And I'm sitting here 5'5", and they're like, no, he's a good baseball player. But I mean, I don't know, this kid who's 5'10", 5'11", I'm gonna play this guy, even though Chaz is pretty good, but like this guy, he's a bigger dude. And so like, I don't know, he might do something better. And so it was always just like that doubt
because you had a couple adults that were in your life that were almost bullying you too, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that was part of the reason why I left my first school was because I felt like that, just bombarding it, like that mental, like those words. Like words can mean so little, but at the same time, they can mean so much if you give them meaning. And I mean, that was something I struggled with for years. Was people would bombard me so much and tell me all this stuff. Like I would give meaning to their words, and so that's what would happen. Like I'd look at adults, and I'd say, "Well, this person is an adult. Like they're older than me. Like I should respect what they have to say, or like I should look up to them, or like try to understand what they're saying." And then we have an adult telling you, like, "Yeah, I don't know if you're really like that good, or you should probably stop playing baseball when you're like 15, 16 years old." And it's like why? Just because I'm small? Like that, like now as a 25-year-old, like that makes no sense. Like I don't even know why you say that to a 15-year-old. But as 15 years old, like I'm sitting there and I'm like, wait, am I actually not as good at baseball as I think I am? Because like that's one thing I'm very grateful that I've had is I've always been pretty confident in the things that I'm like put my time and effort into. And so I always had that confidence, and I'm sure that's why I pushed through and continued to play ball. But you're sitting there and you got these adults, again, like the people that you are supposed to be looking up to, and they're putting you down and telling you like, oh, give up on your dreams. And you haven't even gotten to like really a difficult, like you're still playing high school baseball, or like most people play high school baseball if you play baseball when you're growing up. And like they're telling me now, it's like, yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Like maybe you should give it up. And it's like, no, like that doesn't make sense to me.
The only thing that we could kind of say for the person is, okay, maybe they're like the therapist was saying in episode 2, like maybe they're giving you a little bit of that tough love. But Chaz is this nice kid, he doesn't need the tough love. And not only that, but I don't really agree with the tough love either. I mean, your mind is still building. I don't care how confident you seem, we're all still building confidence when we're younger. Like that to me is like extreme dereliction of what reality should be, because an adult should know better. They should be building these kids instead of breaking them down at this point.
Yeah. There's so many variables behind it. And I always say, like, we get to choose what we'll hold on to and what we won't hold on to. And as a kid, we don't know that, So no. We're kind of, just like you said, you're holding on to what an adult is saying. And kudos to you, because you chose to take the actions that you needed to take until you found an adult who was feeding you the right things and not feeding you the toxic things.
And good for that man, by the way.
Yeah, huge. And what I would like to ask is, do you have a lesson, like a big lesson takeaway from being a baseball player, being a bullied baseball player, and then turning out into the person that you became today?
I would say, I mean, everybody has to deal with failure. I mean, I think that's one thing that every baseball player learns. I mean, you could be, I mean, at college level, if you fail 65% of the time and you hit 350, you're probably going to be an All-American. And so that alone through baseball, but then also being bullied, like everybody's going to go through ups and downs. Like, and that's what life is. Like, no matter what, how hard you try to always stay up here, that's impossible. You're always going to come down here. And at the end of the day, I think that most successful people figure out how to make this a short period, and it's a quick back up.
I like that.
Baseball and being bullied for a long time taught me that you're going to have those lows. You're going to have, everybody has them, no matter what. Like, they're unavoidable. But if you can find a way and push through that stuff, it's just going to make you that much stronger. Like, I had 2 terrible seasons. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're all jumbling over each other because you said something that was so brilliant. You said making them short.
Yeah.
Like having a low and figuring out a way to get out of that low as quickly as possible. And I think everybody caught that.
we wanted to know how you made that low short, or how do you fill that low?
I mean, the biggest for me is, I mean, I don't know. I know I asked Tyler, he hasn't heard of David Goggins, but I don't know if you've heard of David Goggins, Cliff. But
Absolutely. You can't hurt me.
If you guys want to read a great book, read Can't Hurt. I think Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. He's an ex-Navy SEAL. One of the best books I've ever read. But I actually read that during COVID, and that absolutely changed my life. Like, the way he looks at it was, he used to be really, really fat. Like, he used to weigh, I think, like 350 pounds. And he ended up being a Navy SEAL, and now he's like runs like ultra marathons and stuff. He's absurd. But anyways, he talks about using the stuff from your past as fuel. And I know, Tyler, you've talked about that too, for me, like, I got bullied from when I was probably 10 until I was 21. Like, I have dealt with that harassment, bullying, whatever you want to call it, even into college. And so I dealt with that for the majority of my life, and I got through it. Same thing with my back. I dealt with back pain for 7 years. I got through it. I found if you can use that stuff, like that pain, as fuel, and you're down at that bottom, you'd be like, you know what, I'm down here, but a couple years ago I dealt with this, and that was way worse than what I'm dealing with right now. And even if it's not worse than what you are dealing with right now, it still gives you a little positive. Like, you can see the light a little bit and be like, because I dealt with this for 8-9 years, and now look at me, like, I've thrived through it. Why can't I thrive through this situation as well?
How much of that was, I need to prove these guys wrong? That I need to prove that one coach wrong?
Oh, that was my biggest motivation for most of my college career. I mean, I have even now, like, I have a little notification on my phone that pops up every morning at like 7:30. It says, just prove everyone wrong. And that's huge, is because I had that for so many years where people just doubted me for whatever reason it was. Constantly hearing that doubt in your ear and having just kind of circulate in your brain. If you could figure out how to get past it and do it. And I mean, I doubt there's very few people that I play with would think that I would have played professional baseball. I mean, I only played professional baseball for a couple of months, but like, I still did. And that's a very, very small population of individuals. And it was a huge motivating factor for myself.
Especially coming from somebody, growing up that everybody told to quit.
So I want to talk about how much of a badass you are, because you took something, crushed it, beat one barrier, and then you mentioned something. So you said, I read a book, and so I'm assuming this was 2020 because you said around COVID?
Yeah, I caught this too. This is awesome.
You read a book in 2020, and you said it changed your life.
Yep.
So you already pushed past one limit, and then created a whole new limit altogether. And that's what I want to give to these kids and bully this. It brings me back to my story, and I'll go real quick and shift back into your story. It resonates so much because all I wanted to do was lose weight. I was an overweight kid. That's all I wanted. But I would have never guessed the UFC. I would have never guessed becoming a quote-unquote celebrity. I would have never guessed any of that. I just wanted to do one thing.
Yeah.
And when you go from one to the next, like, that's the beauty of it. Like, that's the beauty of the journey is you never stop growing into your greatest self. It's beautiful.
Oh, yeah. You almost had to take a bite-sized chunk and get it. You got a little bit. And then you took a little bit more. And then you took a little bit more. And then you read this book. And then you leveled up again, you know. And then you're still young, so you're leveling up as we speak.
Yeah.
I can see it.
Power,
I can see it on TV right now.
Yeah. Power.
You know, go ahead.
Oh, and I want to ask you, so you got the God is Good shirt. What got you to wear a shirt like that? I'm curious.
Honestly, so this shirt came, I want to say, I saw my dad's big into CrossFit. And so he went down to Florida and competed, and they were just selling these shirts, and me, my dad, and my mom bought one. And then, my senior year, which would have been 2 years ago, got postponed because of COVID. And so I got to play another year last year. And I actually started wearing this shirt every single game. And it just turned into something that was just like a symbol for me to understand how powerful I am and how blessed I am because of this individual, wrong side of the shirt. I truly believe that like I've been blessed by whatever our Lord and Savior. I'm a big Christian because of my parents. But like, that's why and the reason why I wear it today is because, I mean, like if you can find any sort of light through religion or through the gospel, whatever it is, I think it can be massive. And honestly, that was something that got me through when I was really young. When I was 11, 12, 13, was having that community of going to church. I know, like Tyler told me that the first initial thing he wanted to do with bowling was getting kids into MMA gyms, get them into a community where they feel comfortable and they feel loved and they feel appreciated. And that's what church and youth group was for me at that time. I mean, I can't tell you how many individuals I had that were real good friends when I was in middle school and elementary school. But when I went to church and I interacted with those kids, I felt at home. I felt wanted. I felt appreciated. These kids who are around me, they didn't want to mess with me. They just wanted to talk to me. And that's all I want to do. I love communicating with individuals. And so when I got that opportunity, I thrived. And it's unfortunate that the kids when I was younger who chose to bully me did give me that opportunity, because I'm sure we could have been great friends if they would have given me that opportunity. Like instead of picking on me, they would have got to know me and understood who I was, like who Chaz Lopez was. I'm sure we would have had great conversations, because I mean, even today, if I ran into my bully, and as long as they weren't holding on to that stuff, like, I don't care. Like, let's have a good conversation, man. Like, what can we talk about? Like, let's relate. Like, let's have a good conversation. And I mean, I got kind of sidetracked there, but
no, it's great stuff.
Yeah.
Chaz, when you were talking about your building phase too, when we were talking, you mentioned that you were really afraid to like talk to people. I want you to tell the kids and everybody else like how you overcame that fear and what you were doing to practice. Chaz has great mental frameworks. If you haven't noticed already, I knew you were going to love this episode. Yeah. And so, Chaz, can you tell the kids like how you came from like this guy that didn't want to say anything, and now you like, how do I explain it? I don't want to say you're chatterbox now, but you know, like you're not afraid anymore.
I mean, you could ask my mom and my dad. I'll tell you, I don't know when they finally forced me to, but it was so bad when I was younger. I couldn't even like McDonald's, like they used to have like the straws where you had to go ask them. And so if they didn't give you a straw, like when they gave you your cup, you had to go up and ask. I was so scared to talk to other people. I could not even go up to a McDonald's worker and ask for a straw. I'd go up to my parents. Like I can remember memories when I was 8, 9, 10 years old. I would look at my mom and I go, "Mom, will you go get me a straw?" And she'd look at me and she'd like, "No, like just go talk to the person." And I'd be like, "No, like I just want to have a straw then." And like this continued into college. Like I know the first time me and Tyler talked, I told him when I was at the school before Bellevue, I would go to class every single day with a hood over my head with these beats in, with like my drawstrings so that you could barely see my face. You had no idea I had headphones in, and my music was turned all the way up to 100. And so even if you wanted to talk to me, you couldn't, because I had no idea you were talking to me unless you like literally walked in front of me. But the first thing was I had a coach tell me, he goes, "Hey man, like, let's work on something." Like, I'm sure, I don't know if he knew like I was like down in the dumps, like I was depressed or not. But he told me one day, I walk into his office and I take my headphones out right before I go into his office, and he goes, "You always wear your headphones, don't you, whenever you walk to class?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm always listening to my music." And he goes, "Well, why don't you like take your headphones out and like talk to people?" And I, like, at first, like, I didn't take his advice, and then he kept on saying it, like, just suggesting it, just kind of steadily, and be like, "Well, what if someone wants to talk to you, man? Like, what if someone wants to have a good conversation to you?" And honestly, that was when I started realizing, like, man, I'm not acting like the person that I truly am. Because I am that person. Like, if you want to come up to me and have a conversation, like, let's have a conversation. Like, I'd love to talk to you. Like, I'd love to hear what's going on in your life, whatever it is. And so that was kind of the first like little thing that I made that realization. But then the biggest thing was, again, during 2020, when I went home during COVID, was I started seeing a therapist who told me that he was the exact same way as me. He goes, "You won't believe this, but I used to be terrified to talk to anybody." Like, he told me the same stories as I did. Like, he couldn't talk to people at restaurants. Like, he couldn't, like, he would stutter over his words. It just, the confidence wasn't there. So he goes, "Do something for me. When you're at a gas station and there's someone behind you or next to you at the stall, like the gas pump, start a conversation with them." And I was like, I looked at this guy when he told me this, and I looked at him like he's crazy. I was like, there's a 0% chance that I'm going to talk to some random person at a gas station. Like, that's the worst time to have a conversation with somebody. And I'm terrified to talk to people I don't know. And he was like, "No." He was like, "Why is that a terrible time to talk to somebody?" And I go, "I mean, I don't know. They're just getting gas." And he goes, "Exactly. They're not doing anything. They're just standing there getting gas. So if you were to ask a simple question just to start a conversation, why would that conversation be bad?" And I was like, that's so valid. And so I started practicing this. I started talking to random people I didn't know. And all of a sudden, I realized that everybody is walking around just like me, trying to be happy to whatever extent they want to be happy, trying to figure out and do the best that they can. And so when I realized that, I was no longer like really afraid to talk to people, because I realized, even though for years I got bombarded by people and they were constantly putting me down, that's not how like the normal person walks around. Like, the normal person who just walks around on the street is not around thinking like, "Oh, screw that guy. Like, that guy looks like an idiot." Like nobody's walking around like thinking like that. Like, everybody is like thinking like they're in their own world. Like, they're thinking about what they're doing on a daily basis. And so if you go up to them and try to have a normal conversation with them, more than likely they're going to try and have a normal conversation with you as well.
Chaz, did you ever think about how many days that you're making somebody's day by doing that?
Oh, I'm sure. I actually had a moment with a player on Tuesday. He came up to me, and I think I told you about him, Tyler, when we first, he struggles mentally like greatly, and just over and over again, like, I try to tell this kid, I'm like, "Dude, like, you're so good." Actually, I got this from, you'll know this, Cliff, Rose Namajunas. I'm sure you watched the fight when she took the belt from I don't know how to say her name.
Wei Lee.
But Wei Lee. Is it? Yeah, just Wei Lee. When she took the belt from Wei Lee, I don't know if you remember, but she's standing in the ring, and as Bruce Buffer's announcing her name, she's saying, "I'm the best. I'm the best." Yeah. And she's literally saying this, staring Wei Lee directly in the face. And so I started doing this with this guy, and he was like, at first, he's like, "Dude, don't say that to me." And I was like, "No, I'm gonna keep saying it to you. Like, no, like, we're gonna keep doing this. We're gonna get this figured out, man. Like, I promise, we're gonna get this figured out." And then on Tuesday, he had his best outing of the entire year, and he looked at me in the face and he goes, "This is because of you." Obviously, I know as a coach, like, I didn't go out there and throw the baseball for him. But for him to say that to me was, it just made my entire week. Like, and it was Tuesday. Like, I've had a great week solely because this dude on Tuesday looked at me straight in the face and said, "This is because of you." And like, if there's like one thing I can say to kids who are being bullied right now is, you've gone through so much stuff, so much crap, people mentally abusing you, physically, whatever it is, that if you can figure out how to push through, it will get better, but it will give you so much power and strength to talk to people who haven't gotten through it. Because there's so many people, there's so many adults who are walking around and they dealt with that stuff and they never address it. They never deal with it. And so they're walking around as full-grown adults and they still have no confidence. And then when one person says something bad to them, they completely shut down because they go back to what people were saying to them when they were 14, 15 years old. But if you can push through this stuff and then you can spot those people, like I know I heard Cliff in his first podcast, your guys' first podcast, he said that he's really good at seeing energy. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's because you went through a bunch of stuff. And so you know how to look at people and be like, you know what, that guy right there, he's struggling. Or that guy right there, he's on a high right now because like I know what high he's on. Or I've been down in the dumps where he's at. And so when you can look at people like that and you've gone through this stuff, it gives you so much power to talk to these individuals and to make a difference on their life. And use that negativity that you had for so many years as a powerful thing.
Can you get to
you
the?
mentioned,
Go ahead.
Confidence and building your confidence, and I look at we either can have it or we can't on our journey, you know. And sometimes bullies may have confidence because they have the numbers, but what I realized is confidence is just a muscle, and the more we use it, the more it spreads for everybody.
Yeah.
So, for instance, I would make someone who was bullying someone feel open and vulnerable, and they're hurting just as much as the people that they're bullying.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I looked at that, and sometimes the answer is so simple, and I'm not saying it's always this way, but even if a kid were to ask, "Why are you doing this to me? You're hurting me." Because it gives people a moment to reflect.
Yeah.
And see like, oh my goodness, this is what I'm doing. Sometimes the bully's so used to being the bully.
Yeah.
And they're doing what their people do because, well, that's what we're supposed to do, right? And the second you question it, it's like, wait a minute, I'm having a human-to-human experience now.
No, I totally agree. And I mean, I told Tyler this. One of my best friends, actually, we opened up and like we had a lot of great conversations, and he told me that he used to mess with kids. And he told me straight up that the reason why he used to mess with kids was because at home he had a terrible relationship with his pops. And so he had no power at home. And then when you get to school, he was one of those kids. I mean, he was 5'10" when he was 13 years old. He was 175 pounds. And so when you're 5'10", 175 pounds at 13 years old, then you got a kid like me walking around, and now you have power all of a sudden. Yeah. You can go use that power, and then you go back home, and now that kid has no power again. And so, and again, like that's something that's helped me a lot is again, walking around and realizing I have no idea what that guy's going through. Like, he shouldn't be talking to me like this. And I need to bring it up to him and be like, hey man, like you can't be talking like this, or you can't treat people like this. Like this is not the way to talk to people. But at the end of the day, like, unless you go and try to make a conversation with him, you don't know what he or she is going through. Like, you don't know, you could be going home and his dad or mom could be mentally abusing him just like he is doing to you. And so that's his outlet.
That's what's weird about getting power early in life too, right? So whether you grow at the beginning of your adolescence or whether you grow towards the end, you know, you're given that power at somewhere along the line. And how much does that change somebody if you're given that power from the start? Yeah. And how much did that allow your mind to grow by not getting that power yet?
Well, I remember, so are you familiar with Teddy Atlas? I'm sure you're familiar with Mike Tyson. Teddy Atlas?
The name sounds familiar.
So he trained with Mike Tyson back in the day. So I know they have their own personal things that I believe that they squash. But Teddy Atlas said Mike Tyson has never been in a fight. He's never had a fight because he was always the bigger, badder guy. And whenever he got into a real fight, he always lost. Now, I'm not saying I agree with that because life is complicated. But when you are this mega powerhouse, and the second you finally get pushed and you've never felt it before, see, that's the beauty of what you went through. You're saying, like, look, I'm the smaller one, but I'm going to be the most technical. I'm going to do it more than anybody's ever done it. And I know David Goggins is this way. I feed on David Goggins all day long. Because it's like, if I do this 10,000 hours, you can't hold me down. Because I know other people aren't going to be crazy enough to do that. Like 10,000, I'm good.
Exactly.
So I'm like, I'm going to do it again and again and again and again and again. And eventually that pace is going to multiply itself. That's the other thing where I get super excited. Your coach and your mentor, he said, you're here, but you're going to be here.
Yeah.
And that's the game changer. I'm like, oh my goodness, the momentum, it magnifies itself. So I'm going to put in the reps in the areas I need to put in the reps to magnify myself to the greatest version of me. And that's what you're doing as you go through your process.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, one of the best things I've ever had a coach tell me was try to get 1% better every day. Like, no matter what you're doing, because that's this is attainable goal. It's a very attainable goal.
Yeah.
But on top of that is the compound effect. Is no matter what you're doing, it doesn't matter if you're trying to run a business, if you're trying to hit 300 and make it to the MLB, or if you're just trying to be the best teacher at the middle school in Seattle, Washington. It doesn't matter. If you put in the hours every single day, eventually that compound effect is going to click and you're going to become a great baseball player. You're going to become a great business person. You're going to become a great teacher. It doesn't matter what it is. But as long as you put in that work and you buy into that process every day, like, you will get to where you want to be, or at least very, very, very close.
Sometimes the goal transitions along the journey too, right? You start out in baseball, right? Like, you've done a lot with baseball and you don't know where the journey goes next. And how did that baseball journey take you to what the next journey is, that is your next calling. And so it's good to have these journeys, and it's good to get involved with as many things as possible, because it's the idea of kind of an interdisciplinary thought. It's like you bring this mind that it's experienced all these things to a new situation, and then awesomeness happens, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally agree.
So going back to how you use this journey, because I kind of feel almost that there's two major paths that we're going to go through in adolescence, especially when you've experienced what you're experiencing. So I almost feel like you're built by it or you're destroyed by it. What do you tell a kid right now that's like on that path, to where he needs to stay over here and be careful not to get on the path that goes elsewhere? Cliff and I were actually talking this. I can probably make this point a little bit better. Cliff and I were talking about a guy we know, and he's a talented guy, in a lot of ways. He has that body from the beginning that's built perfectly, and he has that, work ethic and the other things. But what he doesn't have is he's always blaming the world for everything that is not perfect for him. So how do you tell that kid, like, yeah, I know this stuff sucks and it's not average that you have to deal with it, but you can't totally the world's doing this to me, I give up. If it wasn't for the world, I'd be doing awesome.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think getting stuck into that victim mindset is very dangerous, because you get to a situation where it's very difficult to get out of that, where you're just constantly blaming everything else. And I think the best thing for me that always helped me not be that victim is understanding how many other people are going through this stuff and how many people can relate to what you're going through. And that's actually one of the biggest reasons why I would say for all of these kids who are going through this is talk to somebody, talk to a teacher, talk to your parents, talk to a coach, talk to somebody about this stuff. Don't just hold it in, because you will be surprised how many people will be able to directly relate to what you're going through. They're not going to tell you just straight up, especially if you're 13, 14 years old, you try to go to an adult, and they're probably not going to just tell you that, when I was 12 to 16 years old, I was bullied every day when I went to school. The thing is if you go up to them and you open up, even if you break down, it's not a big deal. If you go up to somebody and you break down, it's okay.
Because you were scared to tell your parents in school, right? Like it took you attempted to tell your parents at one point, and then you kind of like had a hard time with it, right? Do you wish the past you had been a little bit more expressive to your parents on what was going on?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I actually watched that documentary, Bullied, last night, and that was what I ended up texting my mom because I'm forgetting the kid's name.
Alex.
But yeah, I think it was Alex. Like his parents find out about it because the documentary crew tell his parents like what's going on, and his mom's like sitting there, like why didn't you tell me this? And he's just sitting there speechless, like he doesn't know what to say. I can relate to that so much, where my mom and my dad are sitting there and they're just staring at you, trying to ask you these questions. And for whatever reason, like you don't feel comfortable to share. And even now I can't answer the question why I was uncomfortable to share with my parents, but like I really don't know why I was uncomfortable. But another thing that stuck out from on that same point is like I think in that movie, like you see one of the principals where she's just like she tells one of the kids who's getting bullied to shake the bully's hand. Yeah. And she's like totally downplaying it. And I think to an extent, that's where the uncomfortability comes from. Is obviously your parents have no idea. They don't see you get bullied. And so they're not there with you. They're not your teachers. They're not your principals. And so they're not your first resource for help. A lot of the time, your first resource is student counselor, your teacher, the class you're getting bullied in, principal, vice principal, whatever it is. And I think when teachers, vice principals, administration, they downplay it like that, and they try to make it to where it's like, yeah, I know this bully was picking on you, but he said sorry, and so it's okay now. And it's like, well, if you downplay it and then you don't even respond, like he doesn't get punished or anything, now I look at this adult and I'm like, that adult did nothing for me, because I know in an hour when this adult's gone, this is just going to continue again. Because like I've dealt with that so many times where you tell somebody and then they like the bully or whatever gets in trouble for like 30 minutes, like they can't go to recess or something, and then like they're still sitting there like they don't care, and then they're just right back to it. And so you start to feel that nobody's gonna help me. So if I can't even share it to my teachers or my administration where it's actually happening, why would I share it to my parents? Because what can they do?
Totally.
And that's kind of what I was thinking after watching that movie. Like I still don't really totally know.
It's just a perpetual system. It's small steps, like you said, that you can be in growth, like we talked about earlier, but it's these small steps that walk you into this like siloed closet of your own mind, because it's like, well, that didn't work. And if we're teaching over and over again that like, this doesn't work, this person's not going to help me. Okay, I've tried again. This doesn't work. This person, when do you actually give up? You know, and then, so I don't know how we break through that part, you know, and especially like the most frustrating part for me on Chaz's journey is the bullying from the adults. Like it's hard enough, you know, he's already getting it from the kids, and then he gets it from the adults too. And it's hard as a kid to not believe that. It's one thing when the kids are telling you you have no soul or whatever, and I don't know, they think it's a joke or funny. But when it's coming from the adult or the coach or, you know, whatever, you're supposed to be able to believe that guy.
Yeah. I go, Chaz, thank you for sharing that information and your insights, and Tyler, appreciate you as always. Like, support is so important for everybody. You know, even as I'm going through my entrepreneurial journey, it's the same thing. It's just having that support to say, hey, there's something for you. And I think whether it's parents, whether it's kids, I tell people they're doing the best they can with the tools and the resources that they have and the reality that they're living in. And knowing like there's a light, there's a glimmer of hope somewhere. And it's always in us. You know, I ultimately say it's in us, but sometimes people don't see it because they're so stuck that they want to see like some sort of North Star, something to anchor into. And so I say, hey, we're here. We're here. Chaz is here. Reach out. Yeah. If you need help with something, reach out.
Well, and even when you're trying, you know, the parents are fully engaged. So I'm going to use a Cliff and Tyler story to kind of explain this. Yeah. So if Cliff tells me, Tyler, will you train with me today? Will you take a run with me today? Hey, I need a knee to bend. I'm stressed today. Hey, Tyler, we're going to Russia. I know that we're going to this scary country that usually Americans aren't allowed, but I need you to come with me, and I need you to have my back, and I need you to spar with me, and I need you to roll with me. I can do all these things for Cliff, right? I'm there for him, just like a parent is, like I got his back as much as I can. But then there's the point where he's about to have the actual fight. So I've been able to help him. I've been able to be right there with him the whole time. But then when it goes for him to get in that cage, and this sounds silly because it's like, this is the hardest part for me too, because I feel if I can just say the perfect thing, if I can just say the perfect thing to Cliff right now, it's going to help him so much. What am I going to say that's that perfect thing? Or a parent sending his kid off to school. What am I going to say that's perfect thing? I can't be standing next to him. But in the end, Cliff's has got to walk in that ring alone. There's not much I can do at that point.
Yeah. And the other cool thing, I always talk about raising our standards and saying we're going through a transformational period because we get to choose how we're going to perceive the situation.
Sure.
I can go like, I lost because Tyler didn't say the right thing. It's just like, it's all your fault. Or I can enjoy the experience for the experience that I'm going to have.
Yeah.
The beauty is win, lose, or draw. I can go out and say, you know what, I gave my best. Why Bully This is so powerful to me, and why I decided to do this with Tyler. Kids don't come back.
No.
They don't come back. Like, they make a decision to either go one direction or the other.
Yep.
And you can't come back from that. There isn't a reset. And so hearing that, I'm like, all right, I'm in. And I didn't know I was going to go in as deep as I was. Knowing me, I should have probably known that because I'm always looking for solutions. I'm so solution based. I'm like, I know there's a way. I know there's a way. And ultimately, what I want people to do, like, remember, we're all a piece and a part of everything that's happening. And if we raise our standard and say, like, okay, this isn't right, this isn't acceptable, and I'm going to talk to the right resource to not make this happen anymore.
Yeah.
To shut this down. And there's, snitches get stitches, and we have all of these little things that we run by. And ultimately, I say, the goal is to stretch to a new generation, to become a newer society, become an even better society than before. And a better society is where Chaz can win and all of these other kids can win without people having to feel inferior. That's the problem, is that inferiority is, well, I'm better than you because I beat you in the fight, Cliff. Yeah. Like, you're not better than me. Yeah, you beat me in the fight. You had your day. Yeah, you beat me in the fight, but you're not better than me.
There's still tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's what life, this is just my own perspective, but that's what it's about. Having all right, if we're going to compete, if we're going to see who's better, how about instead of you and your 6 friends, and I'm trying not to hate on these bullies, but this is going to sound like hate. Instead of you and your 6 friends, how about we sign a contract that we equally agree on, and we just get to see who's got what? Let's have some fun.
Yeah. At least
you can tease me and mess with me. Hey, we signed the contract. I get it. Or
you have six friends. I get Cliff. But the thing is, it's like, so you try, and these are for the kids too. Like, we're talking a lot about the kids that have this guidance, that have some parents that care about them on the outside, that are like me trying to help Cliff with his fight, going running and stuff with him and being there for him. Some kids, some people don't have that. They don't have that person sit out the side of the corner trying to say the perfect thing before they go in the gauntlet at his school, And so that's when, to me, it gets really scary. And Cliff's right. It becomes a certain point in those roadmaps that, like, there's no return. But that's also the beautiful nature. I notice this especially with kids and animals. Like, as beat up as the world puts them sometimes, like, as long as they're not too far, they come back.
Yeah.
And that's what's truly amazing. It's like you see these dogs that have been put into fight rings and, things like that. And it's just like they've been forced to do all these awful things, or kids that go through the awful things. their minds are still molding to the point that they can mold back to being caring. And I almost think that's what bullying does in a way too, not to go too far off track. It's your mind is in this state of getting molded and you're like, this feels awful, Yeah. And I don't like this feeling.
Yeah.
And not only that, when I grow up and now I have some power, like you got power, you got 6'1", you got to be a baseball player. Like people look up to you now, and now you have some power to say, I didn't like the way that felt. And I don't want somebody else to feel that way.
Yeah.
Which is probably a big reason you're talking to us right now is because it's like, if we can say that one thing that gives the kid a little hope to get through tomorrow, and then they get through the next day, and then the next thing they know, they're through that gauntlet of horribleness that is those younger years. It builds them good. I don't even I almost don't want to say that because it's tough to say that because we don't want anybody experiencing that.
Yeah.
But look what it builds. It builds a Chaz.
I tell you, one of the most important things that I've learned on my journey, momentum. And just like when I run the stairs, I say one step at a time. It's just if I can just get past the next step and then the next step and then the next step. And so I want to give people that step because when people are feeling healthy and whole, they don't go into bully mode. I don't think people who are in a good place and have the wherewithal and the awareness to understand there's a consequence if you bully me. I think that's important too. Consequences have to happen. I remember, Tyler, you were telling me about the gym incident and a regular gym versus a fight gym, the games and the rules are a little bit different.
Yeah.
So the respect is a little bit different.
Yeah.
When you know that you can get punched in the face for acting a certain way, it tends to make people calm down a little bit more.
And the other kid in the documentary, this is what he's been referring to, is the kid's been bullying him. They go to the teacher. The teacher's like, hey, just shake hands and call it good. It's like, yeah, but he just bullied me, and he's going to do it the second you're not looking again, and then he's going to shake my hand again, and then he's going to bully me again.
Yeah. There's definitely got to be... I actually have a reference for baseball, a weird reference. So imagine if there weren't strikeouts. Imagine if you could just stay at the plate as long as you wanted to stay at the plate and you never got to strike out.
Yeah.
Then there's no consequence, no repercussion. And that's what I love about sport is sport has a scoreboard. And in life, there should be some form of scoreboard to keep people in line of the context of life. We're all here on the same planet doing the best that we can. So let's have some sort of consequence. What that consequence is, I don't know.
Sport has real concise rules with referees too.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is great is because we haven't determined that a bully is not a thing that we're going to put up with anymore. We've let it go. We've let the bully go and with a handshake, So, or we've caused a perpetuating system because dad was a bully. Now son became a bully because he's bullying kid, and then so I talk about collateral systems. It's a collateral system.
Yeah. And I agree. Consequences, putting systems in place. Because here's the thing, there's a reason why it happened, so there can be a reason why it doesn't happen too.
Yeah.
That's the game that I look to play.
Exactly.
I really think if and that's what I found funny about talking to the psychologist is hey, why haven't kids latched onto the fact that this Hollywood stuff where there's the true bad guy and the true good guy? I almost think in psychology, and I hope I don't have a bunch of psychologists emailing me later about shame on you. But what if we just sit there and watch a kid play a video game, And how do they act in this video game? Those video games you play where you can be the bad guy or the good guy? Mm-hmm. This might sound weird. I can't possibly be the bad guy. There's something wrong with me. I cannot be the bad guy. Even if I mess up and do the little bad guy thing, I have to reset the game and start over. So how much psychology could we derive from watching the bully play the game? Is he the bad guy in the game?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, I'd like to know. I'd like to know more on that. That'd be really cool.
And if he is the bad guy in the game, should we talk to him about it a little bit? Why are you the bad guy in the game?
Yeah.
You can't steal. Do you feel good when you steal?
Yeah.
You could be the hero this shining night.
So there's like our mind has a muscle to it. And the more we work a certain muscle, the stronger that it grows.
Yeah.
Now,
How long do we got?
just like that,
An hour and 8 minutes.
people, a muscle can only get so strong. Just as like Tyler, you can't instantly grow 7 feet, right? Like you're your height, you're where you're at.
I'm stuck now.
And I look at nature and nurture. You know, that really interests the heck out of me.
Me too.
And I ultimately say, okay, there's a solution here. You know, I'm always looking for a solution. And I can tell you're super solution based because you still had to do the thing. The person who talked to you and said, hey, go talk to the person at the gas station, you had to do it. He wasn't there miming it for you. You did it. And when we remind people, just as your mentor did, like, hey, you're going to become this. You know, I didn't know who I was for a while until, you know, I've gone through my entrepreneur journey and I've gone through coaching to internalize this stuff.
Yeah.
Like I just naturally show up as a loving, kind person because I know what it feels like to be a loving, kind person. And then there's a saying, in life and business, those are going to change. Relationships don't change. The importance of relationships don't change. And I think if we start teaching this a little bit more in schools, because we got the math, we got the science, we got the PE. Where's the relationship building?
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other side.
I'm-
We entered talking about Elon Musk and Michael Jordan, you know, but what we don't know is, was there somebody along Elon's way or Michael's way that actually did believe in them, you know, and then put them on a new path, just like you, Chaz. We don't have too much longer in the show, but I really want to hear how this has built you into what you want to become. What are you up to now? What do you hope to become? How has this burden that you had to bear in school, how has that made your life what it is today and what you're trying to do with it?
I mean, the reason why I want to go into coaching so bad is because of moments like I described that happened on Tuesday. Is having kids who were just like me. I mean, I dealt with major mental issues while I was playing ball, and I kind of I eventually got to a point where I went and saw someone and really seeked out help, but for a long time, like I just tried to figure it out on my own, and no coaches were there to help me. Like they didn't ask me how I was really doing, and so knowing how terrible I felt for so many years playing the game that I loved because of what coaches or other players said to me, and having that feeling for so long is why I want to become a coach so bad, is because I know how terrible that feels. And so if I can somehow create a culture as a head baseball coach, whether it's at the collegiate level or hopefully eventually can get to the professional level as a coach, but whatever level it is, if I can have an impact on a group of men on a yearly basis where they feel comfortable to talk to me and make that relationship with me, because that's something I have outside of that one coach I had from when I was 16 to 20. There's my head assistant coach here at Bellevue is probably the only other coach I have a really, really good relationship with. And it's unfortunate that it's like that. It's very unfortunate that it's like that. Because a baseball coach, what is their job is of course their job is to win as many baseball games as they possibly can, but also their job is to create men who are going to go out and thrive in the world.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's something that has not been talked about very much, at least in my college career. Was the ability to go out and thrive in the world and to be confident who you are outside of baseball. Because there's plenty of kids I know who are confident on the baseball field, but then they leave the baseball field and they're a completely different person. Because nobody talks to them about that stuff. No, it's the only thing they hear about. Like, I mean, as a college athlete, you got weights in the morning, then you go to class, then you got practice from 1 o'clock until 5:30, and you go home and you eat dinner and do some homework, play some video games, and you go to bed. That's the same thing you do every day. And so if you have a coach who the only thing he talks to you about is baseball, and then you're not a confident individual off the field, you're never going to learn how to become a confident individual. And then when baseball gets taken away from you at 22, 23, 24 years old, even if you get lucky enough to go play professional baseball, you play until you're 30, 35, you're 35-year-old and you have no idea what to do now. Now you're walking around and you're clueless. And that's terrifying for a lot of athletes is that feeling of my sport's over. What the heck am I going to do now? And so that's where this has all led me is wanting to be a coach and create an environment at whatever program I get the opportunity at. I mean, I try my best to do it here at Bellevue. Whatever opportunity, just build a culture and an environment that breeds confidence for everybody, no matter what it is. Confidence on the baseball field, confidence in life, confidence in school, and just being who you truly are.
That's what's so cool about your story is because you've taken, this journey that you literally used your underdog to build you into this amazing thing, because you practiced so hard in underdog status, that when the time came and your body came with it, you leveled it up. What else you got to state?
So, I'm going to try and hit a home run on this one. But there's a saying, the only change that you make are through the people that you meet and the books that you read. And you're a prime example of that because you met the right people and you've read the right books and you continue to grow and expand for yourself and for others. So it doesn't get any better than that, and it's an honor and a privilege to have you on, Chaz.
Yeah, Chaz, amazing. I mean, your frameworks and mental frameworks are awesome. Your story, incredible. I just want to go back to kind of the start and talk about this greatness. One thing about Michael and I would assume Elon watching his actions these days, they're talking to themselves in their heads. And I'm sure, I know this for Michael for sure, he's disclosed it. He tells himself he's the greatest in the world. He's telling himself he's the greatest in the world all the time. He never leaves room for doubt at one moment. And that can be really difficult when you have outside forces when you're younger bouncing, you're not going to be good at this. You know how powerful your mind has to be to tell yourself, I'm the greatest, and then you're bouncing off like, no, you can't. You can't do this, especially from adults. So your self-talk is super important. And this is something I even work on to this day. It's like, have self-talk. You are great. More people should be doing more to help you build that self-talk because you can do amazing things with your mind. And if you don't start to believe in yourself, then you can never find that thing you're amazing at. Most of being amazing at something is having confidence in it. So I want to thank Chaz again for coming. Thank you, folks, for joining us again on Bully This. Thank you for episode 4. We really enjoyed doing this for you. Please give us feedback. We've got another guest lined up for you next week. Have a great one.
Take care, everyone.
You've been listening to Bully This, a hero's journey. The effects on kids that are bullied are many. Increased risk for depression, anxiety, sleep difficulties, lower grades, and dropping out of school. It's a real problem, and that's why we created this show. We're acutely aware of the pain, shame, and damage that bullying causes, and our passion is to help kids and families to know that there is always help, that there is always a solution. We hope you've gotten some useful information from the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on Facebook at Bully This, a Hero's Journey. Take care, and we'll see you next time.